After several weeks of ASA PvP, I think this turret tower is probably one of the most modifiable and adaptable designs I've built so far for its size category. I'll be showcasing some modifications throughout the video as well, so let's get started. Start off with triangle foundations to form a hexagon. Now, you have two options. You can either use large doorways on all 6 sides, or you can leave a gap between every other doorway for a total of 3, like I'll be doing here. If you use 3, you may sacrifice a bit of structural integrity at the marginal benefit of increased line of sight. But this really depends on if you'll be using backup pillars later on. As we build up, we'll be placing ceilings for the purpose of refilling turrets every 2 walls high. This allows for the best line of sight and turret distribution, so there's no wasted space between tower levels. I'm going to drop down on foot so you can see how accessible the rotating ladder design is. Place the ladders in a circular motion so that any line of sight disruption is not at the same angle the whole way up the tower. We're at the 3rd level right now in the tower, which is about 6 walls high. This is where I'm going to place my generator. Now, you can place it 8 walls high if you want, but the key is to check the range on the generator like I showed in the beginning. This is to make sure that it's not only covering every single turret, but also that no space is wasted in case it is also being used to power part of your own base due to the range limit of 3 generators in the same area. You can also see right here that I redid this little portion. That's because I wanted to make sure that the secret door itself was not clearly visible and distinguishable from that which is the wall. We're then going to place a ladder up the side of the wall right here, as you can see, and then we're going to continue the spiral ladder design above the generator. I'm going to make this level above the generator the final level of the turret tower. What's great about this design is you can go higher if you want, the pieces won't change. I'll put 6 heavy turrets at the top just to prevent any dead zones. Okay, so what we're now going to do is place our turrets on every single level. This tower design makes use of Ascended's incredibly adaptable turret placement. Since you can put turrets on any hard surface, we're going to use a triangle ceiling to place 2 turrets on the outer door frames. Once we have them set up, we're going to pick up the ceiling just before it loses its timer. We'll repeat this process to put 6 turrets per level. Before we continue placing more turrets, let's talk about structural integrity. If you're worried about people meshing underneath your location, you may want to try the design with foundation support beams instead of solid foundations. It'll raise the design above the ground to give you room for turrets underneath the structure, but in some locations you may not need this. What's perhaps more important to most is honeycombing. Remember how I was talking about pillar support? This is where that comes in. If you choose triangle ramps, you can place pillars in between the negative space. However, make sure that the pillars line up with the direction of a pillar in the middle of the structure. In ASA, you can now place pillars at an angle. If you do this, you will receive no extra support, and your pillars will not be attached to the foundations. So make absolutely sure that your pillars follow in line with the main structure's angles. In regards to square ramps, you'll notice the pillars do not line up to cover up the negative space, and triangle corner roofs will not work either unless you have an elevated tower with enough room below so there is no mesh clipping. All that being said, I recommend taking the time to put both ramps and pillars that align with the foundation support structure. In the C4 test, you'll see why. Let's put up the final turrets and head straight to the testing. Now, for this test, there's a few things that I want you to pay attention to. This design for the test has flawed pieces and the correct form. As you can see from the first 4 C4 blasts, the incorrectly placed pillars flew straight off, but the one correctly placed pillar held tight. Now, watch what happens when the foundations blow through. The walls will still hold, but once all the walls have finally been blown through, a pillar will still hold up the entire structure by itself. That's going to be it for this tower design. Please let me know of any flaws that you found in the build so I can fix them in future iterations. Thanks for hanging around, and I'll see you next time.